All right. Can everyone hear us okay?
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, at 6:14 p.m., I'll call the September 15th meeting, 2025 meeting of the Essex Elementary School Building Committee to order. We'll do roll call attendance, starting online. Henry,
Here.
Mike,
Mike here.
Andy,
Andy's here.
around the table, starting with Tyler.
Hello.
You're gonna say your name.
And yes, yes.
Tyler Rudin here.
And here.
Earl here.
Pam here,
Dave here.
Michelle here, Teresa here, and here.
John Vance. Here.
All right. We'll bring it over to you, Christine, to your meeting. Oh, we're moving on to previous topics. Do we have previous topics?
Yeah, we have a meeting minutes from August 26th for approval.
Did everyone have a chance to review them? I know you did.
So moved.
What's the motion?
Oh, move to accept the minutes from August 26th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
By roll call vote. Starting online, Andy,
Yes. Sorry.
all right, Mike,
Mike, yes.
Henry,
Yes.
and we'll go around the table.
Tyler, yes.
Annie, yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Pam, yes.
Dave, yes.
Michelle, yes. Teresa, yes. Kim,
I understand.
I was still in there, but I went through them in great detail, didn't I? I abstained.
Okay.
Teresa abstained.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks for me.
Okay. So our last meeting we had was our JCJ introduction, and Fawn Pellegrini was not able to be with us that evening. So this is Fawn's first meeting with us as our project manager with JCJ Architecture. So Fawn, thank you for being here with us tonight. She is going to go through the JCJ work plan that we've been working with Doran Whittier and JCJ on outlining the next steps through the preliminary design program phase. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and let Fawn go through this.
Well, it's nice to meet everyone in person. Just a little, Christina said, I should probably just introduce myself. I've been with JCJ for a little over 20 years. I've been in the architectural world for about 28, working on schools throughout that process. I am a project manager at JCJ, also an associate principal, working alongside Jeff Elliott and Jim LaPasta, Emily Zarnecki, Dustin Lombardi, the rest of the JCJ team. Since the last SBC meeting, we've reviewed scope with all of our consultants and collected fees. For those of you not aware of the MSBA process, it's based upon, selection is based upon qualifications. So we didn't have fees initially, and as soon as we were selected, we then reached out and started talking about that with our consultants. We also, with Doran Whittier, solidified the contract with them for design services. We drafted a feasibility and schematic work plan, which we can look at in a moment. It's a schedule. How do we get from today to the PDP and the PSR? Additionally, one of our consultants is Mike Perillo. He was working on his work plan, which is a part of the overall work plan, and started to schedule his educational visioning meetings now through about the end of October. And then we also began JCJ's architectural existing conditions review. So we got the existing drawings for Essex Elementary School, which we're now putting into our Revit to create the model. And Dustin was here actually last week. So he started to do his walk through the school. That's it.
Okay.
So this is the work plan. it's gone through several renditions between JCJ and Doran Whittier. As I mentioned, we have Mike Perillo on board for the educational visioning. So a lot of those meetings have dates and are within the work plan. You'll see about halfway down in the schedule, and I know that it is tiny. But we started to outline the different consultants that will be part of the building investigations and the site investigations. So as of last week and this morning, as I was driving here, just on phone calls, we're getting the schedule for those folks. So they will be starting the end of this week and next week, looking at the 3 sites that we're evaluating, as well as Essex and Manchester Memorial. We also have in blue, we've highlighted in blue the SBC meetings that are upcoming and started to identify the different topics that we'll be talking about.
I think it's just important to note, so this isn't for you to really go through every single line. This is just for us to show all the work that goes into this phase and everything that's outside of not only building committee meetings, but all the different things that Fawn just went through. So this is just to show you, we have a lot of work to do in the next 4 months. And then if I go to the next page, to her last point, these are the lists of our upcoming SVC meetings from now until the end of the year. And these are the topics and decisions that we're going to need to make sure that we address during that time.
Would you like me to go through each one, Christina, or?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, just so people know what it is that we're going to be
Sure.
coming at each
Yeah.
meeting with.
So as I mentioned, educational visioning is beginning. There's about 6, 7 meetings. By the end of September, we'll be mostly through those meetings, so we'll be able to give a pretty good update on that process. Additionally, the consultants will have begun their existing site reviews, and we'll have an update for the site development pieces, what they're finding, and perhaps if we can start drawing some conclusions, that would be wonderful. You'll see shortly in the presentation, we have begun a matrix, and we'll be populating that matrix with what we're finding with the site investigations. We'll also start talking about sustainability goals and how that may or may not affect reimbursements. By October 14th meeting, that will be very quickly after our first community outreach. So it would be a great time for us to huddle together and talk about the feedback that we heard from the community, as well as begin to look at the initial space summary. By the end of October, October 28th, we can truly have a good sense of the different components of the alternates. And so we can begin to look at the different alternatives, I should say, not alternates, but alternatives. So several per site, and proceed to accept the space summary. By early November, we'll continue the evaluation of the alternates and accept the educational program. By the end of November, I should say in early November, we will be sending information to our cost estimator. So by the November 25th SVC meeting, we'd like to review the cost implications of the various alternates, and also review the feedback from the community meeting number 2. And this is all leading up to the draft PDP and then vote of approval of PDP by December 15th. I think we're targeting the draft PDP end of November, early December, so that we could then vote the PDP on the December 15th meeting. Any questions on that? I know I went through it pretty quickly, so.
There are 2 community meetings, October 8th and November. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think there's one
Um,
December 9th.
yeah. So just going back, our first community meeting is October 8th. And then our next community meeting is November 20th. And then we'll have a final community meeting at the beginning of December on the 9th. So December 9th.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so the date on the work plan review is different. So we just want to, November 25th for the community meeting number 2.
Oh, It says 11:20 on here. Okay, let me just, can you pull up the calendar and just check and see? I know Teresa's saying it's November 25th.
Well, on the work plan review slide, it says November 23rd. Oh, review community meeting too. Sorry, that's.
Okay.
That's
I was-
my mistake. That's us. Yeah, got it.
So that's us just then talking about what happened and then going through any comments or anything like that. So that way we can make sure we address anything that we need to with the community.
Right.
Yeah, no worries.
Did we have that many community meetings?
We had
Okay.
2 at the PDP phase. I just thought it would be important for us to go back to the community before we submit the preliminary design program phase to the MSBA and be able to provide some rough order of magnitude costs from our cost estimating that we're going to go through, as you know, at the preliminary design program phase, or most of you do, but they're very high level. They're narratives that the cost estimators receive at this point, because again, they're alternatives that we're studying. They're not obviously fully designed or anywhere close to that point. So they're very high level rough order magnitude costs. So I just thought it'd be important for us before submitting to MSBA, just having that last community meeting with them.
There's another school of thought, which is don't share PDP estimates at all, because they're so preliminary. And they're so conceptual, and if they stick in people's heads, and they later say, but you said on November 23rd, whatever the date is, that this thing was gonna cost $10, and now you're telling us it's $15. It's, you have a much better handle on costs by the time you get into the PSR, right? It's just something to think about. I mean, I don't wanna bog down this with that topic, but just.
I've seen it both ways. I'm saying like rough order magnitude ranges.
Okay.
Like not just like to the dollar kind of information. I think a range would be helpful at that phase. I mean, we do not have to present things at the preliminary design program phase.
We could call it, right, like later.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a decision now.
We're also processing through a lot more than we did in feasibility. We're going to be processing a lot more than more of the school in terms of site configuration, and things like that. So having the extra meeting on the book may not be a bad thing.
Right.
Regardless of what we decide on, PDP numbers and such.
Okay.
Yeah, and we don't have to share numbers. We could just do, like comparisons. This one's gonna be lower than this, like low, middle, high, or.
Yeah, with like ranges or dollar figures to kind of just show where they are within the estimate information. Yeah, we can talk through that. And later on in our agenda, we do have like a communications working group report out. That's definitely something that we can talk about at future meetings to determine what's the right information to share at the upcoming community meetings. Any other questions or comments? Okay. All right, so next we wanted to talk about the visioning plan. You met Mike Parolo at our last meeting, where he kind of outlined the process that he's going to be going through with the district. We have 2 groups. We have a leadership group, which includes district staffing, as well as we'll have 2 visioning sessions that will include teachers, families, and specific groups within the community. We've outlined the dates of the meetings that we're going to have between starting this week and through the end of October. Mike, I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add as far as outlining the 2 different types of groups and meetings that we're going to be having, or I just wanted to make sure you were here for support in case anyone had any questions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm happy to answer questions, but I'll just reiterate what you've said. The 2 different stakeholder groups, the intention is that the first leadership group is a bit more focused, and they will take all of the outcomes from the visioning sessions that are a bit aspirational and a bit high level, and then we'll get more granular in some of those leadership meetings, because we start to unpack specific program areas, special education areas, things like that, that really would impact the program and building layout, and then weigh, pros and cons and the nitty gritty for all of those things. And then the visioning sessions are much larger group of stakeholders, obviously definitely educator focused and based, but bring in families and community members too, to get a broader understanding of a vision and a shared vision across the district. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions about any of the sessions if anybody has any.
Have questions?
Are there any I mean, I know we did the working groups last week.
The communications working group?
No, but we had the table with all of it, but with the assignments.
Last-
The working group chart.
The working-
showed it.
Oh, okay, yes.
I don't know if I'm on that.
I think
many.
there's a visioning working group.
There is none.
Oh, good.
That's why the invitation went out to the SBC school committee for planning on.
There's an ed planning subgroup, which I think.
Oh, that's what I'm
that
thinking of.
you're on, and that I'm on also, but
Okay.
that's separate groups, that's what's in the.
Okay, visioning is different than
Oh, planning.
That was one of the options in the survey we sent.
Okay. I didn't realize we had an ed planning or ed visioning working group.
Add 22nd and 22nd to your calendar.
Yeah. And if you can't participate, just because it took us, this was actually quite hard to come up with these dates to work with everyone within the district because it's just a very busy fall. If it doesn't work for you, we will of course take notes and do report outs of all of the sessions that we have. So that way we can make them available for anyone that on the SBC wants to take a look at them.
So on Friday, invitations went out to the entire elementary staff, but we had done it for Memorial School for anyone who was interested and available to attend both sessions, as well as invitations to Essex PTO and school council for parent volunteers and for board representation with to this group and the school committee.
Mhm.
We're leaving it open because it is such specific dates and times. If we cannot get enough parent volunteers just from Essex, we'll expand it to both elementary school councils and PTOs to see if we can get some level representation. That is the plan we went with last time, so.
And what was your deadline for people to respond to as far as participation? Friday.
Was not here today, so there may be RSVP, so I don't have a preliminary head count as of today.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mike.
Questions?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Somebody's wondering what that ed plan looks like in the end. We've actually, since we did one for the Memorial School, carried it through and kept an elementary program posted to our website. So there may be some updates to that for space consideration, and from what we learned in this process, but we have the blueprint that we're building towards. So I think in talking with Mike and just learning through the process, using our strategic plan and our exiting district improvement plan and our draft district improvement plan, we kind of know where we want to be in the next few years. So how can the building help facilitate things like authentic learning and project-based space and movement? But also, how can he help this group that's working now think beyond what we're just going to need for this 10-year plan?
Mhm.
So that a building that's 25 and 30 years old can be adaptable for the next generation that comes through. So that's kind of the exciting part. It's a lot to get your head around. He's been very patient with us, but we're excited.
Absolutely. Yeah, well said. Thank you. See, I didn't even need to answer any questions, Pam. That was perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Next on our agenda is existing conditions. And again, I'm going to turn this over to Fawn.
Yeah, so Dustin Lombardi, our project architect, was here last week. Started to collect some information about Essex Elementary School. And as I said earlier, he also was able to pick up the existing drawings and we build the model in a software called Revit so that we can then do our studies. And I am in the process, as I mentioned earlier, just scheduling the consultants, all the other consultants, so survey, civil, ME, I say MEP, but it's mechanical, electrical, plumbing, information technology, fire protection, audio visual. So they'll come into the Essex Elementary School and look at what we have here currently. So for the renovation addition scheme, we'll have to assess what do we need to do to bring the systems up to current and future look code. Structural review, civil and infrastructure, so stormwater, things like that. Phase one environmental is looking at regulated materials that are in the buildings. Geotechnical, environmental noise surveys, so 2 of the sites do have, will have environmental noise surveys done. And then traffic, we're specifically interested in the Apple Street location, looking at that. So lots of studies are upcoming, as Christina had mentioned, over the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Sarah,
I have a question.
okay.
We all have questions on. Right, my question is then, how does the facilities assessment building systems subgroup fit into this? Do they review things first? How, once they're coming out before the broader group, or how does that work?
Yeah, no, I think it's, once we receive the information, the report from, their consultant, we review it as a project team, and then we can set up a meeting with that, subcommittee just to go through the report out of the information, and, then we can review it then with the full SBC with any kind of recommendation or input from the working group itself.
Thank you.
Yep.
Shirley, do you have a question?
Any other question?
Then you'll look really smart after mine. So Habib did their report. I mean, and we don't, the same facilities person who was here the last time is not here now. So is there like somebody with institutional knowledge about the building, or is it all pretty well documented and not an issue?
Well, Steve's been here for a very long time. He was here even before Steve Hunt. He's been, I mean, before Jason left, he had been with Essex and Manchester for a very long time. So he's very familiar with everything as far as existing conditions, reporting out. And I think that the Habib study is definitely beneficial to JCJ with that information. It's just a further exploration of work that they did not do during that original assessment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I forgot that. Sorry.
And he really is like the point person.
Yeah.
And has been the point person on the technical aspects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Andy knows the building pretty well too.
Yeah, and if you remember, Steve came to some of our meetings when we were dealing more with the technicals. Yeah.
And my question was, so it looked like the next topic was the criteria for studying Apple Street. So I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself, but I was curious about the geotech and the environmental assessment. And it feels like this was brought up at the last meeting.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like Apple Street deserves at least some limited, I don't think it needs a physical survey. I don't think it needs an extensive geotech study. I do think it probably needs some kind of environmental, like some groundwater samples, maybe in like a day of borings or something, just because it's right next to a transfer station and it's agricultural land and no one really knows what's under there.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I don't want to spend lots of extra money, but it feels like we should be doing some, at least geo-environmental work there.
Yeah, you're right, the next agenda topic is specific to site selection, 3 sites we have to study. And so the point of the next agenda topic is to evaluate the criteria of how we're going to look at the 3 sites considerations, make sure that you agree with the information itself as far as the criteria. And then next is come back and rate it as far as whether or not it's even a consideration or not. So that's kind of the gist. Sorry, Jeff, for your next agenda topic. But yeah, and we can talk through what's the right step. Even if it is still on the table after you go through the criteria, then we can talk about what's the right testing to do for the Apple Street location. Anything else on existing conditions? Oh, yeah.
Is it fair to say, So I'm thinking about what's in the Habib report, and then I'm thinking about conditions that we had to deal with at Memorial School, and I'm a little fuzzy. So it'll be things like, the Habib report isn't going to tell us the amount of asbestos in the building, and remediation, and what the environmental constraints are, right? I mean, he basically did a survey of the physical plant and what it would cost for us to maintain it. Are those the types of things that would be next level?
Right, so using hazardous materials as an example, the consultant will come in and they'll do a review, and we can talk about the extent of that review, but they'll identify, the outcome would be to identify what's here and would need to be remediated, should we do a renovation or renovation addition option? Well, we will have to, so yes, it's taking it, in each discipline, it's taking it a bit farther than the report that was already done, yes.
I mean, in the case of the AC and the asbestos one, they're actually becoming this professional.
Yes,
That's really the only really unknown one. I mean, fact of the matter is, the punchline is that the MSBA is gonna make you replace all the systems anyway, so
Right.
that is not.
Right.
We already started to know the answer, which is they're all tired and should be replaced. But the AC, the asbestos one's a little tricky, because that's hidden stuff.
Yeah, and Habib didn't deal with
Right,
anything.
and it
about
drives
that.
cost, and even if you did a new building here and tore this one down, you'd have to pay or pay it anyway, so. You know,
Right.
it's any case.
Yep.
You deal with it.
Mhm, thanks.
All right. Jeff, you want to go ahead?
Sure. So we've touched on some of the activities that are progressing related around sites. So this is really a introduction of the framework of how we'll gather information and then put the 3 site candidates side by side and evaluate which site makes the most sense to proceed with. So the 3 sites are shown here: the current Essex Elementary School site on Story Street, the Manchester site in Manchester Elementary, and then the Apple Street site. Next, please. So our consultants are really just starting this information gathering, but what we'll do is fill out and develop both graphic and report information, and here create a high-level summary. So what we've started here is the things that we kind of know now, opportunities and constraints, and also unknowns. So things that we we'll be keeping an eye on it as we move forward. So just as an example, the current site opportunities, the school has an established identity in the community because it is a school now. As a developed site, it has utilities running to the building, so that's a benefit when you're looking at either renovating or building a new building. There's multiple options for site access off both Story Street and Western Ave. Some of the constraints, so to undertake construction on the site, it will also be an active school site because there's no off-site swing space. So those phased activities will need to be managed. There are wetlands and a pond, so there could be potential constraints on buildable area. And there's some topography when you get towards Story Street, it drops down. And unknowns, the closer we'd get to the wetlands, the maybe perhaps more higher chance there may be organics in the soils, so that could have some impact on foundation work. Next. So we can step through the same conversation at Manchester Memorial. It's a developed site, so there are utilities in place. We'd have to verify that the utilities are sufficient for an increase in building footprint. Some of the constraints, it's again an occupied school site, and it's also very dense. The last project really took maximal advantage of the available site, so there's limited expansion options. And on an occupied school site, it's really there's gonna be a lot of stuff happening in close proximity. The wetlands and flood zones are I just looking at the blue here, it's obvious that, and anyone who lived through the last regulatory process, there's a lot going on there as well. Another constraint or consideration at least would be transportation from Essex to Manchester. With the site moving here, there could be an impact on busing, although there's a limited number of buses. And of course, the regional agreement building in Manchester versus the regional agreement requiring a K-4 elementary presence in both of the towns. Unknowns, the MSBA funding considerations with the recent project, if any of the site work or existing building that was funded by the MSBA, there may be some clawback of grant reimbursement. We just need to find out more as if the project is looking at the site. Next, please. And then Apple Street, as an undeveloped site, there's opportunities in that there's no disruption to existing schools, so the site is wide open for school construction, and that makes construction phasing really straightforward and simple. On the other hand, an undeveloped site, there's no utilities, and the site is restricted. Access to the site is restricted, both for construction access and long-term transportation to the school. And then there could be impacts to the adjacent residences, right? They're used to a field in their backyard, not a school, as opposed to the other two sites where school activities there's been a long history. And as mentioned, unknowns, really environmental risks. We don't know what the site was used for previously, with suspicion being there may be some agricultural related pesticides or fertilizers, and adjacent to the DPW transfer station.
Sorry, Jeff.
Go ahead, Jim. Did you?
I was just going to say, one of the things on the constraints, talk about the undeveloped site to keep in mind, and I think most people know it, but any offsite improvements we would need to do for road access, utilities would be not reimbursed. So that would end up being a direct cost to the district and the town. So we'll have to factor that into our calculations as we're looking at what needs to happen here.
Excellent.
So-
Thank you.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
So bringing the utilities to the site is on our dime.
Correct.
But once you're on the site, it's MSBA.
Yes.
Then it's partially, then you get reimbursement per whatever the reimbursement
Number
is relative to all the other non-reimbursable deductions. So essentially everything, if you assume for argument's sake that yellow line is the property line,
Yeah.
everything inside the property line is eligible to be reimbursed and everything outside it is not.
There's also a cap on site costs.
That's what he was saying. Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, within the yellow box.
correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
If they were-
Within the yellow box is eligible, doesn't mean it will be, but it would be eligible to be reimbursed.
Okay, and then, sorry, I'm gonna ask one more question. In terms of sidewalks, do you have to have a sidewalk that goes to a school?
I would assume so, yes.
No, I mean, I didn't know, is it a requirement?
That's a question I have too. It's not
Not a ton. Okay, just wonder,
regulatory considerations, I guess I would.
Yeah.
Would that fall under?
yeah,
Or safety and traffic.
yeah,
Right.
I don't know where you want to put it.
right, okay,
But I think a significant piece of this upfront diligence will be that, I'm not gonna say traffic study, but study of Apple Street as a viable busing, commuting, walking path.
Getting there.
access.
Well,
Yeah.
so are we on Apple Street now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, one of the things that came up in some of the community emails that I think is worth somehow studying, and I don't quite know how to do it, but is sort of the catchment of students who walk and bike to this site versus to that site if it were a school. And you could draw a radius around it. I don't know if the kids go half a mile or 1 more mile for walking or biking, I don't know. I don't know how far our parents let them go, but you know, some, and then just counting houses, but you know, I guess it's the only way to do it. There's no scientific way to do it. I mean, there's no sort of study way to do it, but I suspect you find that the benefit of this site is way more families than, you know, get to school by walking, riding.
I think that was part of the high school site.
Yeah, consideration. And I mean, it is truly a community school, and one of the reasons it's a community schools is it's a dense, smart town, you know? So I think that's a worthwhile thing, and it's not really, I don't think it's technically traffic study, but it's part of sort of community, you know, and what keeps kids safe. And right, so the issue, Apple Street is whatever it is, a scenic way, and it's not supposed to be modified, but it has no sidewalks. And Landing Road also has no sidewalks, and only has people whipping down it to go to the dump. And there are also two bridges to deal with. One, Apple Street has a bridge, and Landing Road has a bridge. I don't think anybody has any clue what kind of condition those bridges are in, but that should probably be studied too. Not very good.
Yeah.
Not very good. So, you know, what you don't want to do is put a school there and then find out that in 5 years you have to replace a bridge or two. But it, you know, Apple Street is a pretty dangerous road, and people go really fast. They use it as a cut through. Plenty of people who don't live in town use it as a cut through. And I mean, I happened to be driving down the start of Apple Street right when school let out the other day. And there were two kids riding home, and you know, the guy in front was practicing riding with no hands. It was awesome. I applaud him for the effort. You know, it's a rite of passage. But you know, I'm right next to him thinking this is really not a good idea on this road, you know. So having no sidewalks, I think, is a big issue. And if we're not allowed to put sidewalks, well, the cost of sidewalks out to, you know, Western Ave or most time. Eastern.
Yeah.
Well, no, Western.
That's what.
Would be significant, and I'm not sure we're even allowed to do it. So these are the kind of things I think we have to look at. So it's sort of weird. It's not all just sort of like a traffic. It's not like a traditional traffic study. It's more like a safety study, a pedestrian and bike safety study, kind of. Which I don't know how you do, but I think it's sort of weird.
I'm with you on that, and now that we're actually talking about this in an official capacity, you know, Apple Street was brought forth for consideration through our town administrator when we were first requesting, are there other sites you want us to look at? The Board of Selectmen had kind of a vision for what could be if that's where things went. And here, Andy serving, do you know if is that a continuing conversation, or is everyone just sort of waiting to see how this shakes out?
I think the decision was made to consider it, and so it's part of the requirement right now for the MSBA for this portion of, so we have to.
I
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
I'm asking you from the.
We have not talked about
You
it.
haven't talked about it. Okay.
No, and to that end, I want to follow up on your comments.
Yeah, well, maybe we're probably gonna make the same point. Go ahead.
So, and Gordon's not here, but you know, way back when we did the high school, there were questions about, did we consider all of the sites that were possible? And I don't mean to be a broken record. I know you're probably like, give it a rest, but are there other sites in Essex that meet the, you know, that are like, remember we had like, it's gotta be 12 acres, there's gotta be X number of acres.
You know, but,
You know, yeah, and I think that Apple Street's the only one that bubbled to the surface, but I just wanna make sure, have we done our due diligence? Can we just make a query to somebody
Will
to
you,
get
There's
us?
been 2 queries to town administrator.
I know that, but the town administrator, I would say that we need to push, just because it comes up in those community meetings
Sure.
about, did you consider all the sites that it could possibly be? And I think it's like, I could do it in the morning, right?
I pulled a list today, same one, of all of the town-owned parcels. I also have we have the chair and the co-vice chair of the planning board on our building committee.
Yeah.
It's helpful, and I have access to the very public records from when the zoning was approved or was put forth of a wonderful land use map with all of the unbuildable, buildable. So this really is just a matter of sitting down and checking the box of saying there are or there are not actual other buildable lots. If we have a minimum acreage we're looking at, that sort of thing. I don't even think, if we're not getting response from our town administrator on that query.
We did get responses both times where he gave,
Apple Street as the recommendation to study.
Right,
That was the only one though?
That was the
Yeah.
only information we had received was Apple Street.
and,
but
I
I
think
guess
you and I
what
were
we're
saying,
suggesting is just that to check the box,
yes,
we undergo, and even, it doesn't have to be a formal study, but an informal assignment perhaps to look at these, make sure that there's nothing that we're missing so that we can actually say, again, if we're considering Apple Street by way of request from the selectmen and through the town administrator. But I would say we have received today 6 emails against it. Just, this is something that we have to do and we're going to do it, but let's check the box and make sure that there weren't other
the only
spots.
thing I would push back and say is then it needs to be a formal request to the Board of Selectmen to advance any property they would like us to consider for development. I don't think we can just go through the list as a separate committee and pick things that the town is not willing to give over for potential lease and usage.
I don't think
What
that.
does the town own?
112.
Canoma Point, we put it up there.
I guess it's
That was
more,
very
it's not, it's kind of the order of operation, which is, so we went through the town administrator, and I think we're satisfied with the response. I can't speak for this, for the group. If we're not satisfied as a group with the response, then I think we want to just send a formal letter to the Board of Selectmen, asking them to send to us any town-owned parcels that meet XYZ specifications that they want considered for the Essex Elementary project. Because it's, they need, that, the town of Essex would need to put forward that land for usage by the school district and be willing to lease it.
Like
What's
a
it-
transfer or whatever.
So then what we're saying is, in the absence of doing more to check this box, because Annie and I are seeing a slightly different way of this, and that's okay. But in the absence of doing more, we are just accepting that that has probably been done. And whatever the answer is, it's not that we were choosing this, it's that's what was offered, and that lands and rests with the decision being theirs to have made.
Okay, so can we talk about other processes that we've had for built, and I'm speaking specifically of the high school, because we've been really kind of, for, Memorial School, we kind of already, we had a smaller pool, but there was a site review, and I don't think that those sites came from the town of Manchester. Those were, yeah, I don't know if they came because
You're looking for a joint site, right?
we were looking at opportunities within either side, within either town, so there was a master list. And we banged it out pretty fast because, of these kinds of questions about, site development costs and things like that, but, I don't remember it having to be officially offered from somebody.
You were willing to purchase land at that point too, so then you could look as a committee to say, what lands do we want to purchase?
Yeah.
I guess the question for this group is, do we want to pursue purchasing land?
I do not think it's in the budget, no, I don't, no, but I'm just saying, I just wanna make sure that someone is not gonna come back at us at some point and say, you never looked at this land on this property, because there are a lot of experts, right? A lot of experts who show up at our meeting and say, you didn't ever look at this.
Well, if it's private land, you just say we can't afford.
I'm not speaking of private land at
Well,
all.
then isn't it public record what the town of Essex owns?
That's what Teresa has.
So,
Alright, so,
Um,
look at their list of
I would
land.
love to see that list and I'll talk to Brendan about it. How's that?
Sure.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
We're good. Sorry, I just want to
So
be,
then, for the public record, what are we going to do with that list as a committee?
I don't even,
Pretty quickly can be, I mean, with Memorial, there were multiple sites. And
Yep.
they dropped off instantly because they all either covered wetlands or they were too small to begin with.
or that dump site,
Or
right?
they were dump site, yeah, I mean, it took 10 minutes, I mean, it was very quick, it was pretty quick to vet them. I think the issue would be if there's something that came to the surface, it was like, oh, wow, this is an interesting.
And if that were the case, for my end of it, if that were the case, there was something that came up and I would want to know so that I could explain, so I might say, oh, there is a parcel down here this is
I mean,
a town or whatever. help me
think somebody
understand
would
why
know.
that wasn't put forth. So
I
that
think
when
one of us
we're
would have
answering
some
those
idea of what
questions-
it was by now if it existed.
I'm just trying to think of the work, like, once we start putting things on the list, what formal process do we need to use to satisfy MSBA to say, who's looking at this list? Who has the authority to advance a property, and then how do we determine whether the property goes through an extensive site review or not?
Your design team can do this quickly and tell you whether there's anything that qualifies as worth looking at. That's what happened with Memorial, right? There were sites that were too small, they were covered with wetlands
Right.
and environmental issues.
Right, but Manchester was all willing to put those on the table.
How about if we ask, if Teresa and I talk to Brendan
Yeah.
about any possible sites that you've identified, and he can, present that again to the board of selectmen at the next meeting, and ask them to be on the agenda, and then for our next meeting, we'll know yes or no, or if they're in or out.
I'm pushing a little bit. I'm gonna request that the design team and the project team write a letter to the Board of Selectmen, formally requesting that that be done, because if we are concerned with the public record,
Mhm.
I think it needs to be more formalized. Or we can be, or put together a specific working group that's gonna go and identify sites.
I don't wanna do that.
Just because I think once we're bringing it up here now, we're looking for I think the process, from my understanding, is typically you contact the town, see what the available sites are.
Which we did,
And I'm crediting everybody with doing everything.
right?
But if we want to give it one more go,
Yeah.
maybe we raise the level of it, of the formality of it, so that it does go on the public record, so people feel comfortable that every rock was turned over to
Sure.
identify other sites.
That's fine. And from my understanding, when we did reach out to Brennan, he said that Apple Street was a location that could be considered for building on, but most of the town-owned land on that list were unbuildable in his eyes, and that's his, opinion of the matter. But I think it would be good if you, Annie and Teresa, talk to Brendan about that list and let us know if there's anything that comes from it. But yes, we can draft up something, Pam, to town administrator or select board. I apologize.
And I want to be clear, I'm not suggesting that we need to advance any further sites. I'm actually trying to minimize. My personal opinion is I think that Apple Street's not perfect.
Well, so that's the whole reason.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want to be able to defend whatever decision you make as a group, so therefore I want to be able to understand how we got to that
And
place.
to support the both of you in your defense, I think the project team should get the list and vet the list professionally.
Yeah.
If there is a list to be
You
vetted.
don't trust me.
I do
to do a
trust
site
you.
analysis?
I do trust, but I think we're concerned to make sure that we are just checking all of the boxes. I think that's the best way for us, this group. Credited.
right. And how many properties are on that?
Too many.
Okay.
Many,
That's
but-
why I'd like, if there is any consideration for anything, like for you to come to us with that conversation, for us to highly consider even like looking to the information of it. But that's what this whole thing is about, that Jeff was, brought together tonight,
Yeah.
is to take because we've only heard to this point Apple Street beyond the two other sites. So if there is something that needs to be added here, we'd like to do that as soon as possible, obviously, because we're trying to get you down to your preferred site in this phase.
Yep.
And so we've developed criteria, as you can, I know it's not easy to see on the screen, but you did also receive in your packet from Jacob, an Excel spreadsheet of this criteria for your review. And what we're asking is for you to, Jeff, I don't want to steal your thunder if you
Yeah,
want to.
you're doing a great job. Keep going.
What we want you to do, leaving today's meeting and discussion, is to look at the criteria, tell us whether or not you agree with it, tell us if we need to add or subtract any of the criteria to the matrix itself. And then we'd like to have you come back with a discussion at our next SB meeting on the 30th, where we talk through the considerations and have, hopefully you guys fill it out and provide your input as far as, if there's anything that's looking more green or more orange, right? And so that really then kind of helps us. But if there are other site considerations, we do want to consider that now for our evaluation and for this phase to work for the preferred site itself.
So two things.
If,
Sorry.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I was gonna say, is if that list, I know we talked about the list, if the list is out there, does it have area for each parcel? Because that'll allow us to fairly quickly just skim through it and give you an opinion about project sites that are just too small.
So can I send you
Sure.
the not just the list, but also the publicly available, land use map.
Yep.
And the overlays that we have already available and done and complete, it can probably
Yep.
put this to bed pretty quickly.
Okay,
What is the idea? It says adequate site acreage. Do we know what that is?
There's
Jeff,
no specific hard and fast guideline. It depends on the school size. I mean, there's some ancient guidelines that are like minimum for an elementary school, minimum 5 acres, then an acre for every 100 students is one kind of accepted guideline, but the MSBA doesn't actually publish a specific site size. A lot of it depends on what you want to put on the site, size of the building, how much parking, how many ball fields. So I think we'd be able to rule out ones that are just obviously much too small.
Yeah, the
What-
existing Essex Elementary is 9.75 acres. So I mean, you could use that as a point of reference where
As a
the
minimum.
yeah, where the field now is undersized, right? So I mean, you don't want to create a more constricted site. So yeah, that'd be a good look, maybe baseline above and below as a starting filter.
One other part, the other thing that came up, and I don't know where I read this, it was about something that happened in Manchester about a buildable site that, over by Pine Street at the end of Pine with a new development, and that kind of, worried me, not just because of this and that analysis, but also we just built a school there. And can we handle, whatever was, I don't, do you remember?
Gordon College, recently in the paper?
Yes, and how many units are proposed there? And it's real, right?
CPA, yeah, it's real.
Well, that's kind of a capacity thing, right?
Yeah,
Provides adequate capacity. Is that on there?
I don't know. Is it-
That's so early stages, though.
I mean, so when we did the initial information gathering over the summer, both towns had to report any
Mhm.
potential building projects coming down,
Mhm.
right? And I don't know if it was known at that time as potential.
That was definitely not, no.
We might not know. And there are some on there that may never be.
I mean, I'm on the zoning board, I just found out the cricket. Wait.
Okay,
Everybody finds everything out.
There you go.
yeah, I mean, is there can you have a potential? I don't know.
Are you about enrollment? Are you talking about enrollment numbers? Number of students?
Yeah, I mean, it's more about future capacity. So it really, in that case, it's really applying to site B. So the question is, if you took every kid and put them on site B, are you gonna have enough future capacity if in fact some huge development happens in either town? Or are we right,
Go ahead.
living on the edge already? I mean, if you see what I mean.
So I don't think we have to worry about that. I would think if the planning board receives hard, fast information, we would contact MSBA and tell them there's been a late development. There's going to be X project with X beds. Can you look at our enrollment numbers again? Because our enrollment numbers do factor in potential growth
They do.
over the years.
And this is a hard topic with MSBA.
Yep.
Every community, I hear this, every single community I've worked on a project on enrollment, and people are always worried about, projects like that coming into town, and what does that mean for your students per classrooms, right? And so there's a number of factors that we need to go through when we're studying just the square footage of your general classrooms, as far as the number of students that go in them, and whether or not future-proofing those as far as utilization percentages within each classroom, how that can accommodate if there is a bump or if something comes down even. So that is something that MSBA is very strong to not want to change, because you've given them so much information from your communities as far as showing the information for how many years in the future. And that's how they come up with their numbers. It's a hard discussion to have with them to go back and change your.
Get a different way. So the MSB always wants you to show an area for possible and future addition, right? And it's
Yes.
generic. They don't say to fit this many kids. They just say, where's the addition going?
Correct.
So maybe there's a criteria which is just future expansion.
Yep.
And it's on here, and it can be good, bad, or ugly. And I think the questions could be, if you fill up site B chock-a-block full of kids
Mhm.
based on the enrollment projections, you don't say anything further about the enrollment projections, we say they're good.
Mhm.
is there room to then expand that facility further, not future, if you needed to? And if you can't,
Yeah.
because it's just so full, then that's a criteria to consider.
We
Yep.
had that discussion before even JCJ was on board. If you recall, we talked about if you were to add students to the memorial. I went through the exercise with Pam. We talked about how many students you could add in per grade, what that would look like from some of the project-based rooms that are currently not being utilized as regular, just general like classrooms. And so I can pull back up that information and
I'm saying that's part of you're gonna be part of the site B exercise.
absolutely.
And now, after that exercise is done, after you said, yes, we can get the enrollment objective fit over there if we do this.
Yep.
On top of that, would there be any room, future room for further expansion, again, in the case some insane thing happens, Gordon College?
I think that's great criteria to add.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to achieve here. This whole discussion has been excellent and aligns with what this whole process, comparative side-by-side analysis, is trying to achieve and record and present back in a meaningful way to the community. And what I've heard, sidewalks and pedestrian bike access, safety, future capacity build out. I mean, all of those I think can be clarified and language and added to this this list. I think on the future capacity, just thinking about it, if you consolidate onto Manchester, you're taking basically two sites that you have more room to do stuff. So 9.75 acres and 11.31 acres, and you're pressing all that into 11.3 acres. So you're obviously losing 9.75 acres for expansion or usage. So just to wrap up here, so we don't know everything yet. As we get more information through our specialty consultants, we'll be adding that into those previous slides and graphics and documentation for discussion. Then the process is we're looking for some additional input on these criteria. We can update this as we move forward, and when we have enough information to make informed decision making, then we can go ahead and do a scoring exercise here. Christine, you just want to go to the next slide just to wrap up this section from our perspective. So we also roughed out what a similar evaluation matrix for the building options. So we know each site that's in the process that isn't eliminated, we'd have options for it, and MSBA requires at least 3 types: code upgrade, an addition renovation, and new construction. So those are color coded orange, pink, and blue. So on site A, on the current Essex Elementary, all 3 of those options would need to be investigated with the existing building. At Manchester Memorial Site B, we're thinking really only an addition renovation is going to be one of the options. And then Apple Street, since there's no building there, obviously, to add, renovate, or code upgrade, that would be new construction. And as some of these may have multiple options depending how the design work proceeds in the future. So we don't need any feedback right now on the criteria, but we'll do a similar process as the site is evaluated and narrowed down. We'll then do the same, repeat the process for these design options. And you can see the types of criteria: educational viability, community, site use, building, cost and schedule. So there's a broad gamut of discussion points moving forward.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at, and that's where we're going to be moving in the next few weeks.
And this could change too. I mean, as we go through this criteria for the site and you further evaluate the 3 different sites, or if there's another site even that comes into play here, maybe one of those gets dropped off to where when we then start doing our full evaluation, even maybe Apple Street isn't something that we study when we're doing the alternatives, right? So this is just showing how we're getting from the site to then the options to then further evaluate in this phase.
Yeah, this was just for format only, just a look ahead. We don't really know yet how many options there'll be. Hopefully few.
No, we're just interested in making sure that the criteria reflects things that ought to be looked at.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the
So-
important thing, I think I was trying, the important thing is the criteria on the left column for both of these exercises, because that needs to be what you all as a committee would like us to evaluate it, what's important to you. And then it needs to be consistent, because then back to the whole idea of this being defensible, we have to make sure that it's a clear process and that we've treated all the sites and all the options equally.
Agreed. So our next building committee meeting is on September 30th. You have the Excel spreadsheet that has the criteria listed for the 3 different sites right now. If you could take a look at the criteria, let us know if you have any, we took away the additions that you wanted to add, but further additions or things that need to come off, if you could let us know within the next week. And then that way we have the time to be able to review it. We can send out a revised version to this group, and the ask is then to come back on the 30th and go through how you've looked at the criteria itself and give it some scoring. And hopefully we can do a side-by-side comparison of that information to see kind of where the committee stands on the sites that we're studying right now. Good.
Anyone else have questions on that?
Okay. So as we said, we had our first communications working group on Friday last week, and we talked about the upcoming community forum on October 8th. We've created a save the date, which was sent out by the school district last week to the community, and that went out through Parent Square, the Blackboard, town email distributions, etc., and went on to the district Facebook page and different town Facebook website pages. We also created a flyer that can be printed and distributed through the towns on the different boards around towns or anything that community events shows up on. We also are printing postcards that are going to go out in both towns as every direct door mailers. And that indicates the meeting itself, that we're going to be having, the meeting starts at 6 o'clock, and we're going to have a building tour start at 4:30 on site. So that way we can get the community in here to see what the school actually looks like and then have them participate in our community meeting that evening. So a lot of communication has been going out about the upcoming community meeting. We're going to make sure that leading up to the meeting a few weeks in advance, reminders go out as well as a couple of days before the meeting as well. So hopefully we have good attendance, and just like our SBC meetings, they'll be held also hybrid. So people that aren't able to come in person can join us online. And we talked about the agenda itself. It's very similar to the previous building project first community meeting that we have, where we go through the introductions of the team. We talk about what MSBA is and their partnership with the district themselves. Our schedule as is outlined within the preliminary design program phase and what we're tasked with until we submit that first module to the MSBA.
Any questions?
We talked about tours prior to and do you know who's going to be leading those tours or attending those tours?
We're happy to send out a doodle pool to the building committee to see who can participate and help facilitate going around the building and talking about it. I think Kim definitely should be there because she lives it every day and is here every day. We're happy to be here also and walk people through the building. We can send out a doodle pool to the building committee.
I just think that there are folks who are in the industry that would be helpful to show kind of like what you see, you know this building, and I don't know.
Yeah.
You speak with authorities, so I think that's a good thing.
Okay.
Or you can have building committee reps too.
Yes.
Anyone else have anything they want to talk about that's not on the agenda?
I have one small thing. Everyone should have gotten an email invite to access the shared folder online. We received 6 emails from community members today. 5 of them specifically regarding Apple Street and 1 regarding the project in general. It's important to me that everyone on the committee have access to see all of the community input that we get through email, even though we don't read it in at a meeting. But it will be included with meeting minutes. And so if anyone has trouble accessing that, please let me know. As they come in, the way we sort of do things with school committee is if an email comes in and is addressed to the school committee, the chair generally replies on behalf of the group, or if it says to Pam, Superintendent Bowden and the school committee, then she'll reply, and the school committee chair will just say, reply to let you know that it's been received. So anything that goes in that folder will be replied to. If individual members of the group receive emails directly in your official capacity, not just your friend chatting, but in an official capacity as input, you're welcome to put it in there as well. If it's something for the whole board and it's official business, but it will become part of the record with the meeting minutes.
So letters that are mailed in would become part of the record.
Yes.
Okay. Do you wanna get into a practice of just characterizing the letters that came in or naming who sent them? And do you want to do anything with that?
I think we should probably quantify the number of letters of the topic.
Yep.
So.
We have 5 letters regarding Apple Street as a site. I can say all were against using Apple Street as a site, and 1 letter against a school project at all. And they all came in today. So that's why this was definitely not reasonably anticipated.
And I would say I received, I think under separate unless they were blind copied, I think a duplicate of yours.
Okay. I included the 2 that you.
Okay, so
Yes.
just for clarification, the one that I got that was anti-project was pro-consolidation,
Yes.
that we should just consolidate.
Mhm.
Washington.
Do we have anyone on from the public? I don't think we do. Nope. We have no one on from the public unless there's any.
I have a couple of members of the public. Would anyone like to make public comment tonight?
I'd like to ask a question.
Name and address, please.
Oh, hi. Janet Carlson, 24 Apple. October 8th, the community meeting. How have you publicized that? Because I haven't received anything or seen anything on Facebook. Is it just going to school families?
The save the date went on to the school Facebook page. And we got the flyer today, so this week.
Yeah.
Broadly, I think there's about 30 flyers to go out in local places, and then a share out to the 2 towns to the posting.
And I wanted to, I guess also ask about Charlie brought up Apple Street it's for its scenic road status and pedestrian safety. Have you discussed also the environmental statutes and regulations that come into play for that parcel because it's close to the protected river? Part of the parcels in the buffer zone that goes downhill. I presume downhill is not buildable, but it's definitely in the buffer zone. And there was the wildlife habitat on the northwest property line. So these are considerations that have to do with, of course, environmental protection, but I'm also just wondering about squishier things like conservation and historic preservation values. Do those come into your discussion? Does MSBA have any guidelines for you to take those things into consideration?
So I'm just gonna say we're very early in this process, like you just said, we're just trying to create some criteria right now for evaluating the sites. Some of those things would fall into regulatory concerns for sure. We will be having those conversations. We have consultants in all of those different areas to do that. So this is something that will be well covered territory. Pam or Christina, is there anything you'd like to add on that?
We are just now getting consultants on board. There are a lot of things for us to consider and to review. Again, we're studying 3 sites right now. And so that's part of the criteria that we need to study. And yes, there are regulations that we have to follow when it comes to site regulations and things like that with issues with wetlands. And there's a lot of complications when it comes to that, but we do need to review and study.
I would summarize it was a very clear driver. In terms of actively going back for the conservation committee. There's some restrictions on it. So it will weigh heavily in the decision making.
Thank you.
And there are no comment.
Thanks. Hi, Amy McKinnon, one other department just but I'm not addressing it.
I guess I just did have a few questions as to, does the process require a certain number of sites? Kind of to what Annie and Teresa were saying, that we want to have 50 sites, but was Apple Street kind of put out there because we just have to show a site because Apple Street next to Belcher has to be the most dangerous road in all of Essex. And next to, I don't know the gentleman next to Annie, it's that part, we all know that costs are expensive. I guess I'm curious, is there a way to evaluate Apple and start to see where it might not make sense, then we aren't just paying for consultants to tell us what we might already know. There are no sidewalks. School buses don't drive the whole length of the street for a reason. There is one section of that street that's 14.5 feet wide. There was and Janet would know this morning, she was she was very much helpful with it. There was a whole review done at the other end of Apple that might already have information about the street. I don't remember the name of it, but the whole run up that we all call the highway ramp. And again, there's no sidewalks, there's no lights. It's not near the community, so it doesn't impact me. So this is not me saying not my backyard, because in some ways maybe my valuation would go up. But I can't imagine a more ludicrous location. We have to have site access to the dump. That was always going to be a key piece if the county on the plan, that there would be access to the dump because the bridges are completely in disrepair. So there's just a lot of factors that I'm just hoping as the professionals see it, we stop the ball before spending money on something that, and I guess, in my opinion, I hope obviously would have gone through, but I still want thousands of dollars for consultants for something we might already be stating.
So I can respond to part of that, which is that the requirement for us to study these 3 sites is because that's what we included in our application to MSBA, because that was what was put forth by the town of Essex to us. So that was from the town of Essex, please consider the Apple Street parcel. So we are considering the Apple Street parcel. I think everyone at this table probably is in the same position of, are there ways to just sort of narrow this down a little bit quicker and easier if that's going to be the case, but we're very early in the process. And that's the point of this initial pass with the criteria to.
But we're not required to have it 3 sites, 5 sites.
MSBA does require you to look at potential sites for cost effective. But driven by whether or not they can support the program. So what you're saying is what I think they are trying to accomplish with the initial pass through, they made this before they start to begin the site. Am I accurate in that?
And I guess
Yes.
if I could just have one other question, knowing you said you received an email from someone saying don't do the project at all. Consolidate. One option that definitely I've heard, and I heard someone mention that it's K through 4, it's not required to be K through 5. I know the regional agreement would put the red dot on the grid. Is that adjustment of could Essex Elementary be a pre-K through 2 or 3? And then does that allow it being a smaller footprint, maybe smaller costs than 4 and 5 go to Memorial so that they're not overflowing? That's the creativity I think some people have asked or mentioned over the last year or so.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if it's stuck to the K-4 piece because anyhow, that was the part of knowing things are creative.
It's built right in. So
Yeah.
that's that second grid that shows the different configurations. So we're looking at 3 sites, but we're also looking at a number of different grid configuration setups.
Good.
Other couple comments? And
So moved,
is there a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
All right, by roll call vote, starting online. We have Henry. He's still there?
I can't tell if he's here. Henry?
Henry, Mike,
Yeah, not online now.
Andy,
No.
Looks like they lost everybody.
they're all gone, all right? They're out.
It's just project team online.
All right, around the table.
Annie, yes.
Charlie, yes.
Sam, yes.
Damien.
Shelley, yes. Teresa, yes. Kim, yes.
Darn, yes.
7:29, we are adjourned.
Thank you.